The element of generosity and its importance in relation to the other elements of harmony.
I think so. That belch, it sounded like he was throwing up, and that unexpected stream of fire behind Twilight, and that look on her face. Oh, come on, dude. Don't be such a killjoy. Even adults can laugh at immature shit like this. So, over the series, Spike has been through the ups and downs. He's been somewhat controversial, but in a manner that was, for the most part, hush-hush. There were those who liked him entirely, but then there were those who thought of him as a dud character. I don't necessarily agree with those, but I was admittedly not too enthusiastic about him either, as I stated in my earlier reviews. I said in the Crystal Empire that he's my least favorite of the main cast, but that's mainly because his development was undermined by how the staff was writing him. We saw in Cunimar Chronicles that he hatched out of an egg that some ponies have given to Twilight, but in Dragon's Quest, she states that no one knows where the egg came from. Good job wasting your potential there, writers. Added insult to injury was when he was treated like a punching bag in Season 4. Silver Quill, of course, had this to say.
When I asked about the challenges for writing a male character like Spike in a female-dominant setting, they shared a laugh about how they abused him, and Amy Keating-Rogers said there simply wasn't room for Spike. In a series with 6 strong female leads, it's already crowded without focusing on yet another character.
This actually infuriated me. Just because there were so many main characters to deal with in the show does not excuse you to leave someone else in the dust. You have a series, not a movie. You have plenty of room and time for everyone to write. And in Spike's case, there's still a lot of potential for his character to develop. So episodes like Meltdown is a step in the right direction, and it took me by surprise. Even more than Gauntlet of Fire. Hey, I'm not taking back what I said. Gauntlet of Fire was good, don't get me wrong, but it could have been done better. The debate of whether or not Spike would ever grow wings went on for a while, and it was easy to see why. Other dragons have had wings, which to many it's no surprise at all because it was commonly identified with. However, there were a few dragons in the show that didn't have wings, so I was under the impression that this was the case with Spike, and I came to accept it. Funny enough, whenever I was asked about this, I stated that I doubt it would ever happen because of how long the show has aired, but lo and behold, the show pulls another moment that leaves the fans to celebrate. Now, as much as I enjoyed the episode immensely, there are some issues that I've had. The first of which is identifying what the plot is. While it does play up the idea of his identity, Spike's progress led me to believe that it was a sick day plot episode. As it begins, Spike develops itchy scales with some volume problems with his voice. And that. This was explained by Smolder that Spike has molts.
Molt? The molt? Super painful stone scales, fire burps, uncontrollable volume shifts? It's all part of growing up dragon. Congrats! Oh, sorry.
This is some nice detail about dragon culture being shared to the audience. While I have stated before that there were some missed opportunities, it's nice that some details were given rather than none at all. Some of which was explained in Gauntlet of Fire, where the scepter was being passed. And based on what's happened with school days, I think there's a better chance now to bring more detail on the said culture. In addition, I love that Smolder addresses the differences between Spike's current state and the events of Secret of My Excess. Nice continuity save there.
I haven't even told you about the smell.
Smell?
Ugh. Yeah, I mean, I love my brother and all, but one whiff and I was all, see ya!
Jeez, I'm legitimately afraid of asking what that actually smells like.
Where's that Brussels sprouts covered in cotton candy smell coming from?
Thank you, Pinkie Pie. I will never eat Brussels sprouts and cotton candy the same way again. What? No, I just can't eat any of those two without the very thought in my head now. Ugh. Anyway, Smolder also informs Spike that when dragons get the molt, they have to leave. This brings my issue with what I was identifying the plot as. As I said before, the first impression I had was that it was played up like a sick day episode because of the way it was played up. He was laying in bed with itchy scales and other bodily functions, which can be identified as a form of sickness. But seeing that this is the growth and development of dragons in the show is pretty convoluted. But up to this moment, Spike is now worried about whether or not he'll have to leave Twilight for the sake of tradition. What makes this worse is that this was addressed a few times in Season 3 where they didn't go anywhere with it. It was first addressed in the Crystal Empire when Spike entered the door that would lead to his worst fears. Those few seconds already established one of his character traits, and was stated from Twilight afterwards that she'll never leave him. The second of which was when he felt forced to leave her in spikier service based on his dragon code. What makes it worse was how contradictory it was, and that this was never mentioned again until Gauntlet of Fire, where he states he belongs in Equestria. So seeing his concern for abandonment brought up several seasons later again is very fruitless, and it makes the plot even more ridiculous. To his credit, it is a challenge for Spike regarding the unknown of his culture since he grew up specifically with ponies. It also helps establish Smolder's character more, which is nice since this season hasn't focused on the student characters as often as it should. Still doesn't excuse how late the conflict is built up. The other issue that I've taken from this episode is comparatively minor but still worth pointing out. During the beginning, Rarity is led by Spike to a phoenix nest where she can work off of a new dress design. When she returns later though, it's established that she is deafened by the feathers. This is one of the most absurd plot points I've seen in the series. How is it that phoenix wings make you deaf? This was never established before, and it's been shown from time to time that phoenixes were with ponies in the past. To add insult to injury, Spike states that phoenixes aren't meant to be domesticated, which explains supposedly why he couldn't keep PHEW. Did anyone forget Philomena, Celestia's pet from Season 1? You're telling me that Celestia wasn't supposed to have a phoenix for a pet? For that matter, how is it that she's not deaf after the past fucking millennium? Wouldn't his feathers be everywhere provided the stages of a phoenix's life cycle? This is not only confusing to the functionality of a phoenix, but it adds nothing to the plot of the episode other than have Rarity kept for the final act. I know that this is breaking the unspoken rule from Mr. Enter when he reviewed Equestria games, but I think there could have been a better plot point. Have Rarity be blinded by a phoenix by accident when gaining the feathers. Maybe some of the feathers have some light magic left over. This was shown in Dragon Quest when Garble and his friends were chased in a pack. Not only would this be much more fitting and clear, but as a bonus, Rarity can see Spike's wings after her vision recovers on top of being saved by Spike as she doesn't know yet. It would have made the ending a lot more celebratory and exciting by her reactions. Instead, we see her shouting all the time, which eventually got annoying.
Yes, and also I'm glad you've got wings!
Now, having her kept in the episode isn't a bad idea because it does show Spike's willingness to save her when falling from the rock's grip, and the connections that he's had with her over the show's runtime. Most people assume that it's a teasing relationship, but over the series, I've seen it grow from a character's childhood crush to a simple friendship. There wasn't any more blushing or the Twitter-pated eyes that he's had during the earlier seasons, and personally, I'm fine with that. Having an interspecies relationship would have never worked, and I'm glad that a friendship connection seems much more established, even if it's done in the most subtle way possible. Given the complaints that I have addressed, this doesn't take away the episode's impact and entertainment value at all, but these still seem like I had to address them. What's worth mentioning once more is having Zecora involved in the story. The shameful impression that I keep on getting from her, though, is that she's only used for plot convenience. We never see anything behind her culture or where she was from. Even after school days, I'm still wondering if we'll get anything from her, other than rhymes of exposition. Nevertheless, she serves her role very well in the episode for both Spike and Rarity with their problems, and the dangers that she has been involved in. Also, when helping Spike, I love how observational she gets with Spike's issue. The moment I still love was when she utilizes Spike's fire breath and using it very quickly for her cauldron. The shit of what Zecora has to go through, and yet she's only used for exposition. Seriously, writers, flesh her out more, please. Getting back to the mole's stench, it apparently grabs the attention of predators and dangerous creatures, such as the Rock in the final act. Much like I said when I reviewed It's About Time, it's nice to have various creatures from different lores. Though, as of lately, that's not saying much given how much world building was given. However, the fact that it still continues still amuses me. As for the final act itself, it was a bit silly at times, but the suspense was still present. Ever so conveniently, that's where Spike got his wings, though I will say that his learning curves of flying was a nice touch to add, knowing his trials and errors. And I liked what he was able to strategize when confronting with the rock and then finishing it with his fire breath.
Now, that's what I call Mongolian barbecue.
Now, I have been admittedly critical here, but all things considered, it's still a fun episode to watch. Seeing Spike get his wings is very exciting, and given his track record, I think he deserves it. I'm really happy he has them. It's admittedly late in this series for this to happen, but it's better than Diamond Tiara's redemption after being written so late in Crusaders of the Lost Mark. And while the shouting has been annoying, it's tolerable, and it still doesn't take away the rest of the episode's enjoyment. And with Spike having his wings, there's a lot more he has to look forward to in his own life. I wish him the best of luck. So, until next time, I'm GoldenFox, and one more time.